Good morning, everybody. My name is Simon Hamilton. I'm the Chief Executive of Belfast Chamber. You're all very, very welcome to this morning's event, the latest in our Belfast Talks business series, which we're delighted to deliver in partnership with Ulster Bank. The theme for today's event is Innovation City, and what we're going to do today is we're going to look at the work of the Belfast Innovation Partnership and the range of initiatives that it is undertaking to build on the heritage that our city has as a city of inventors and creators to transform our economy and to set us on the path to an innovative and technology-based, knowledge-based future for the economy of our city. We'll also hear from a local startup who are an excellent example of innovation in action. We will also conclude then with a question and answer session, which we will also be pleased to be able to welcome John Ferris, who's the Regional Ecosystem Manager at Ulster Bank, who will join us for that conversation. Please feel free to submit any questions for that. If anything is said by any of the speakers that sparks any thoughts, any issues that you have, please use the question and answer function. We'll try our best in the time that's available to us to put those to our guests. So I want to move very quickly on to the main event of today. To kickstart proceedings, there's no better person to tell us about Innovation City Belfast than the city's Digital Innovation Commissioner, Jane Brady. Jane, you're very, very welcome. Very pleased to have you here this morning. And I'm going to hand over to you and to hear all about all of the excellent work that you and the partnership have been doing on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. I'm delighted to be here. As Simon kindly referenced, I'm Belfast Digital Innovation Commissioner. I'm working in Belfast City Council, and I'm also lead for the Executive Committee for the Innovation City of Belfast, which I want to tell you more about later. But I guess just to set the context for what Innovation City Belfast is, it's really focusing on innovation to deliver inclusive growth, but through investments in Belfast to make that a regional innovation for growth within Northern Ireland. So although it's based in Belfast, using that agglomeration to make sure that it's inclusive for all of Northern Ireland. And I guess it was Simon just referenced regarding the opportunities of building on our heritage, and innovation doesn't happen in isolation overnight. And it's based on long-term strategies, and it's based on our DNA within Northern Ireland in engineering, in our maritime sector, such as around the world, in our shipbuilding, in our new technologies that are emerging in AI, and in our big, long-standing legacy in health and life sciences. But actually, I think a really strong example of where those innovation and risk-based strategies have paid dividends is an initial investment by Queen's University in their cyber campus CSIT. In 2003. Again, this was a brownfield site, and this was a risk-based decision to move into those facilities. I guess back in 2003, almost 20 years ago, the view that cyber was going to be a really strong strategic need within not only the UK, but globally, wasn't there. So there was great leadership shown, not least by John McCanny, in terms of identifying that as an area of focus for research, spotting the opportunities ahead, but also make the decision to relocate a facility from the campus in Queens into a brownfield site. And we've all seen the dividends of that. 200 companies now within that area, 3,000 people employed in the site, 120 million per annum. And the site recognised and Northern Ireland recognised as a global centre for US FDI, and indeed referenced globally as one of our key jewels in terms of innovation. I guess it just doesn't have an impact there. That broadens the whole economy as a key linchpin for investment and has supported our extended sectors, particularly in regulatory technologies and financial services. So the impact of those initial infrastructure investments, strategic innovation investments, creating a wider infrastructure. And really, Through Innovation City Belfast, our intent is to really double down in terms of those opportunities and to maximise both with the investments that we're making through the city deals and the current investments that we have in those areas to deliver a global innovation district, which I'll talk about more later. But I guess I just want to say also, again, looking back the last 10 years, how much development there has been in terms of innovation. I'm not going to go through the detail of these, but just to say from over the last 10 years of where we have progressed to in terms of an innovation capital. #1 centre for US FDI in cyber, European destination for financial services, leading the way in some very significant areas within health and life sciences, and also in the transition to net zero carbon. Those are backed off by billion-pound deals in terms of our city deals, and some really exciting investments through the digital twins and the Artemis investments. So I really truly believe that it is no better time to back an innovation-based recovery strategy and vision for the future. So again, just some key facts, you've probably seen these, but sometimes we're not really as good as we can be about selling the real benefits that Belfast and Northern Ireland has, both in the UK but in the global stage. We've seen really significant growth in terms of our business investment. And whilst we get little investment from UK government in terms of public sector spending, we actually, with the funding that we give a very good return, a 1 for 7 return. Interestingly, in 2019, 26% of all the roles that were advertised in Belfast were digital tech roles. The next area was Bristol with around 19%, so significantly punching above our weight and actually highlighting the opportunity for reskilling and growing that economy, because Northern Ireland and Belfast is the best place to work in the digital sector from a salary to cost of living perspective. And I guess, how have we fared during the crisis? Again, our tech and innovation sector has been highly resilient, giving us a really solid platform to grow our recovery on. The ICT sector grew by 2.7% in terms of GDA during the pandemic. Ulster just last week was rated the top 50 UK universities, and Queen's for the second year in a row was defined as the #1 entrepreneurial university by Octopus Ventures. Second in both years was Cambridge University. So that's the best investment return for money initially provided in that seed fund. We've been highlighted as one of top 3 tech hubs to watch in 2021, and that is a global stat. And our tech recruitment is up at around 90% of pre-pandemic figures. We're highlighted as the best place to live and start a business in the UK by PwC. And we've also got a very significant commitment of transformational investment in terms of innovation and digital. I guess we've just recently seen the announcement both by PwC yesterday and about KPMG recently about scaling and growing those centres for technology and innovation within the Belfast area. So we have many positives and we have a very solid platform to build on, but I don't want to downgrade either the challenges that we face. And I guess these are those wicked, complicated challenges, interdisciplinary and more difficult to fix that with a single kind of base strategy. But there are 3 areas in terms of that. Firstly, in the economy, and that's down to low productivity and economic inactivity. We are in the 5th in the G7 in terms of productivity within the UK, and we are 16% below the UK productivity figure. So we need to provide mechanisms which drive those higher productivity jobs, higher productivity sectors, but also which provide routes into pathways into employment for those who are economically inactive or underemployed. Health and longevity, we have very complex socio-economic issues. And there is 7 years life expectancy difference, even within Belfast, between males in different economic backgrounds. And climate, currently we provide 4.2% of greenhouse emissions versus 2.8% for the UK, which should be our share. Challenges in there in terms of agri and our transport sector. So these are the complex challenges that we need to fix. But a key strategy is that innovation will be core to delivering on that and delivering a triple bottom line recovery and a route to break even in all these sectors. So I guess with that context, we can't use the same thinking and the same methodology to solve these very complex problems. And we need some different ways of thinking. And you would have seen many different emergent policies which have been indicating that new way of thinking. There was analysis by UK government on the missing 4 billion by Nesta, the lack of public sector funding to Northern Ireland, and that's funding outside the Barnett formula. So at the moment, if we took a pro rata share, Northern Ireland is missing out around 300 million per annum in terms of spending within innovation. And innovation funding, public sector innovation is fundamental to providing more and better jobs. There's also, you'll see the 10X economy launched recently by the Department for the Economy, a very ambitious vision based on a decade of innovation. In addition, there is also proposals regarding free ports and their opportunity to deliver innovation hotbeds within the UK, and it's likely that Northern Ireland will be a recipient of those. So we are, through the coalition of partners which make up Innovation City Belfast, chaired by Belfast City Council, with Belfast Harbour, Queen's, Ulster, Catalyst, and with our partner Invest Northern Ireland, we have come together to look at those really significant challenges and to understand the levers and to put the best case forward for Belfast and for Northern Ireland. Our principles are inclusive growth, increasing productivity, and becoming an innovation leader. So looking towards those areas where we have significant background and expertise, also where we invest in terms of research excellence, and to double down and focus on ensuring we maximise those to deliver increased productivity and inclusive growth. These are our 5 centres of excellence which are being delivered as part of the Belfast Region City Deal. All of these in the Belfast region area, most of them within the actual innovation district itself. You'll see they're doubling down in terms of health and life sciences, again, going back to the defibrillator and our med tech sector and our rich DNA in those areas. Also from our universities, the spin-outs with really strong expertise within that health and life sciences sector. In advanced manufacturing, we've always been a leader in terms of the advanced manufacturing sector with Harland & Wolff, with Shorts and now Spirit, and with our transition to clean growth, which has been greatly signposted by Artemis Technologies. And then, of course, one of our new and exciting sectors is in the area of screen and media innovation, looking at artificial technologies and how that can deliver a new sector that Northern Ireland can lead on. So I guess within that, we have focused on 3 priority sectors based on those areas of excellence and innovation in fintech, in health tech, and in green tech. So sustaining our existing businesses, of which there are many, 40,000 employed in the financial services centre, making sure we equip them with the skills and innovation investments to make them resilient to the changing worlds delivered by AI. Doubling down on our health and life sciences sector, providing funding and facilities to make sure that we maximise the opportunities within that sector. And also within green tech, we have a really significant manufacturing base, but those areas are significantly challenged with the net zero carbon targets that are emerging. So ensuring we provide those companies and organisations with the ability to achieve those challenges. So our vision is really focused on 3 core pillars. One is supporting our SMEs scale up and innovate. One is delivering inclusive innovation pathways for reskilling. And the third is focusing on high value cluster growth. For those who have looked at the 10X strategy for the Department of Economy, you'll see it's very strong alignment. But embedded across all of this is making sure that we provide consistent, resilient and inclusive employment and skills programmes. So just to conclude, what we have delivered during that last 12 months of this project portfolio, Innovation City Belfast was launched in the last month, but actually our work had been much in advance of that. The first of all was making sure that we were putting the case for Belfast and Northern Ireland very centrally within a UK component, highlighting our strong areas of innovation, our strong industry base, and where we can provide a play into the new strategies that were emerging. So we mobilised a team from all of Northern Ireland to respond to the levelling up agenda and the strategies that have been delivered as part of UK government's innovation strategy. I was appointed to the Innovation Strategic Expert Group to advise the UK government on that approach. And we've also people identified in place strategy as well. But ultimately, the root out of that is how can we leverage funding to deliver, to catalyse these opportunities. So we led a spending review bid last year, and out of that we are working on a 50 million proposition to deliver transformative solutions within our net zero carbon maritime, aerospace and land transport sectors. We're also leading a bid for this spending review, focusing on regulatory technologies, and again, strongly industry-led with our partners across Belfast and Northern Ireland. We're also looking towards the opportunities that an innovation-led enterprise zone with a Freeport proposition can be used to maximise that opportunity. Within the City Deal, we're delivering a 55 million challenge fund, really focused on those SMEs on the innovation journey, supporting their engagement with universities. And we have just completed an industry consultation, which many of I'm sure the audience have been involved in, to make sure that we're designing the solutions with industry in mind and achieving those significant impacts that innovation can deliver. We're also delivering through the City Deal a circa 40 million programme for an advanced wireless throughout the innovation district, so core infrastructure which can support our businesses and academia develop new solutions and new technologies and new use cases right in the heart of our innovation district and smart district. We're also coupling those into place-based investments, looking where we can combine the innovation district, the significant investments through the Smart Port with Belfast Harbour and our smart district in the broader Belfast core area. I'm looking towards refreshing the economic monitor, and I'm sure everyone is familiar with the knowledge economy monitor, which was delivered by Catalyst, but making sure that we're refreshing that with the support of Catalyst for the next decade of innovation and ensuring we build in the key performance metrics for that, including the inclusion aspects. Some of these are very long term. The challenge funds will be delivered the next 12 months. But actually underlying all of this is the ability to provide skills and provision. 75% of the businesses in Belfast pre-pandemic said the biggest issue affecting them scaling was the accessibility of skills. So we do not take that lightly. And we have been very active in terms of spearheading and delivering some inclusive innovation programs. You will have seen our first announcement from the programme was delivery of the AWS Restart programme, which is delivering opportunities for those with no formal qualifications into an AWS qualification. We have an initial cohort to be delivered through that, working with industry, and we're hoping to scale that programme. We've also delivered a digital futures programme, building capacity and assured skills programmes, but this time with a focus on our SME companies and the skills that they need. And that first cohort was delivered in the first quarter of this year. And our third cohort that we're kicking off is a new beginnings, looking at diversity cohorts who have been potentially not targeted to date in terms of provisions. Specifically, we're looking at pathways into technology skills for women and for people with disabilities, and we're beginning that cohort exploration this week. So that gives you a view of the portfolio of projects that we're working on. Again, we've just appointed an innovation director. We've announced that person is in the next number of days, but they will spearhead the bringing together of some of these programs in terms of making sure that they realise within that near-term skills piece, but also the longer-term strategic opportunity for the next decade of innovation. Thank you.
Jane, thank you very much for that. That was great. There was a fascinating insight into lots of work that's going on to realise that ambition of making Belfast an innovation city and renowned for being so. There's a lot of stuff there that I'm sure we'll come back to later on. And just a reminder, if anybody has any questions for Jane or indeed any of our contributors, please put those into the question and answer box, and we'll ask as many as we possibly can. At Belfast Chamber, we're always very keen to highlight and showcase companies who are doing great stuff within our city. We're very proud of the wide range of companies across our membership and across the city who are doing amazing things. And we thought that it would be a good idea to showcase an innovative startup during this event, given the theme. If you've been about the city in the last number of weeks and you've been in places like C.S. Lewis Square or Consular Greenway, you might have seen signs advertising something called Civic Dollars, and like me, you might have wondered what on earth that was about. Well, this is your opportunity to find out more. We're very fortunate to be joined by Stephen McPeak. Stephen is the CEO and founder of Civic Dollars, and he's going to take us through what his new company and platform is all about. Stephen, thank you very much.
Hey Simon, thanks very much. I'm just going to share my screen out here. So yeah, I think it's very interesting for what Jane was saying on focusing on health tech and health and longevity as part of their wicked challenges, because that's something that really resonates with what we're doing and what we've been building over the last couple of years. So just to give you a bit of backstory, I've been working in the IT and technology industry for 23 and more years now. But over the last 9 years, we've been developing smart city tech, focused mainly on citizen engagement. And it was through that work that the idea of Civic Dollars was born. Because our whole journey started, I suppose, back in 2013 when I bought civicdollars.com for a different project. It was to reward users of our Report All app. And it wasn't until Belfast launched their Smart City Challenges at the end of 2018 that I started to formulate a plan for that. I suppose the journey of any startup is the idea stage. And we were lucky that at 2018, it was the Smart Belfast Active Health Challenge that kicked off the ideas. And we won that challenge for a scoping study to test the important aspects of any project. Is it technically possible? Will anyone use it? And more importantly, will anyone pay for it? So between the research and I've been through every bit of the lean startup, the business model canvassing, the persona creation, user journey mapping, financial forecasting. I think I've been through the wars with it. But this is all while I was running my own IT business as well. So it was definitely a struggle at times, as all startups will know. And I'll delve into what we went through with the SBRIs as well, and how important they were, along with the Belfast accelerators, to get us finally to building a product and generating revenue through it. Because the research had shown that at the minute 67% of the UK adult population are overweight or obese, and that's costing the UK government 27 billion annually in healthcare and productivity loss. So this is a global problem, but the current strategy is focused on treatment, not prevention. And the main issue behind everything was a lack of physical activity. So Civic Dollars encourages people to be more active without realizing it. By creating incidental activity, we'll improve public health, not by measuring steps or distance that they do, but on the time that they spend in a park or open space. And they can earn Civic Dollars for every 30 minutes they spend in these zones. They can walk, run, cycle, or just sit on a park bench and enjoy the surroundings. Primarily that is so we didn't discriminate against users with mobility or health issues. So they can then use their Civic Dollars for rewards that will improve their lifestyle, or donate them to a local community group or charity. So over the last 2 years, we've won phase 1 and 2 of the Smart Belfast Amazing Spaces project, which was an SBRI. So this provided funding to build the full production version of Civic Dollars and roll it out across the city, which due to delays with COVID only started at the beginning of June there. So as well as that, we're providing the council with a data-rich environment showing park activity levels and congestion zones. And that's just a snap on the right from the first week of activity on the Conswater Greenway. So we've also, through our lessons in lockdown, the app has a traffic light system to aid social distancing and help users make informed decisions of when and where to visit, showing the activity levels. So just to go back to the SBRI, which is the Small Business Research Initiative, without it, this project would still be an idea in my head. But through the phases of the SBRI, phase 1 is to test a product. We were able to create an MVP and see if the actual technology worked. And we were lucky enough to get through to phase 2, which provided funding to build the full production version of it. And then phase 3 is when you go to full procurement. So a lot of other countries that don't have this, they have a big problem in the innovation side of things, where companies sort of have death by pilot, where governments bring in tech solutions, usually from SMEs and startups, and they have a pilot and nothing happens afterwards. And they're very jealous, through speaking to a lot of them, of the SBRI model, where they have the phases and the good tech gets through and all the theories are proved and validated, and you come out with a solution at the end that you can scale. So we built civic dollars through using geofences. So the zones are created by creating these geofences around the various parks and assigning values to them. This again through the startup phase and through the accelerators, the likes of John's and the Ulster Bank and the Propel program that I'm on at the moment, is giving you access to mentors who will take your solution and look through it and point out all the problems that you never thought of before. Our initial concept was to use IoT beacons, and people would carry around fobs that would automatically tag them in the zones, and they would get civic dollars for that. But speaking to the EIRs and the mentors, they were quickly to point out that it's not a feasible or a scalable solution, trying to get power to them, the problem of vandalism and people losing fobs. So it definitely wasn't a scalable solution. So we switched to a completely mobile first approach and used geofences to surround the parks, and each park can be assigned a different value. So we can persuade users to visit underutilized parks or parks in areas of deprivation or bad health by increasing the earned value of those. And again, the great value is there's no hardware cost. It's all done between the phones and our platform. And of course, we've limitations built in to avoid users trying to cheat the system as much as possible. So due to winning smart city contracts to bring civic dollars to Leeds, Dublin, as well as the Belfast project, the story reached a lot of local press that created national interest from the Telegraph, the Sunday Telegraph, and even Good Morning Britain, which has given us great exposure and opened up a lot of doors. So I suppose my big ask is for people to get involved, not only on a personal level for users, but also from a business point of view, because we're creating the activity by stealth, and we're getting those who are inactive active. But we also want to use corporate social responsibility and our dashboard to show partnered businesses their social impact on the communities and public health. So we need more local companies that have a time or service to offer rewards to the community groups or to users. For example, for the community groups, we've been very lucky to have Tuans who have got involved and offered legal advice clinics in exchange for the civic dollars, and other business consultants, financial consultants offering these times and services. We've had offers of website design, logo design, things that community groups could never access before, or never thought they could access before, but now by getting their members out using civic dollars and donating back, that they can get access very easily to it. And what we offer is the social impact dashboard. They can see how many groups they've helped, how many rewards have been redeemed, and ultimately how many hours in the park they've been encouraged because of their actions. So yeah, please get in touch if you can help in any way. And that's me. Thanks very much.
Stephen, that's brilliant, and I mean, I think it's been great just how well received the platform has been since you officially launched it, and you highlighted some of the profile that you've got. I've seen it referenced on my social media feed by publications and writers in far and wide. So not just here locally in Belfast and in Northern Ireland. So it seems to have, you've really touched on something here. So well done. And you mentioned about there's lots of businesses listening. Yeah, in terms of getting in touch with you, what's the best way if this has sort of ignited any sort of thoughts in people's heads who are listening, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yep, sure. Either through the website, civicdollars.com, or an email, stephen@civicdollars.com. Simple as that.
There you go. I hope hopefully some of the people who are listening get in touch, even just to have a conversation to see whether they can help out in any way. Thanks, Stephen. Thank you. That was great. And we've had a few questions that have come in from attendees. So if anybody else has any questions, please put those into the Q&A box, and we'll get through. But there's a lot that's been said there to maybe go through in detail, and I'm sure folk will have more questions, so please ask away. But before we go back to Jane and Stephen, I'm going to bring in John Ferris. You're just John earlier, but for just to remind everybody, John's the regional ecosystem manager at Ulster Bank, and one of his jobs is heading up the entrepreneur accelerator that Ulster Bank have, and helping to develop companies like Civic Dollars and many others as well. So John, that was I think two really interesting presentations. One was sort of macro of where our city is heading and very much where it is, and Stephen's presentation shows that isn't so much the future; it is actually happening in reality now. And obviously, what you guys are doing in the accelerator and the various programs you have, it's about helping companies like Stephen to develop and grow and to take those innovations, those ideas that they have, those inventions that they have, and turning them into a business proposition. And just want to maybe ask you what do you think of what Jane was saying at that kind of high level, at that macro level, and then how that could be translated, and how you and indeed others in the city are helping those businesses to come to life.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. I guess the interesting thing for me is, I know when we talk about startups, we always talk about those overnight sensations where suddenly everyone's talking about Google or Amazon, or let's stick civic dollars in there, Stephen. I think all those businesses have taken 10 years, 15 years to get to where they become that overnight sensation. And I think what Jane's talked about this morning, and the kind of focus of where we're moving forward to, we are where we are now because of all the work that's happened in the past decade across a massive range of stakeholders locally. And I think that's one of the things I'm most proud of. I've been in this role for nearly 6 years now. And as a collective, I think there's a lot of parts that are playing their small bit in making this work. And I think we wouldn't be where we are without that. Stephen kind of alluded to a couple of accelerator programs earlier when he spoke. And I think the work that Ignite are doing with Invest and and ourselves, Raise, there's so many parts around this. And I think that's what's allowing us to become a more innovative city and allowing us to breed more innovative companies, because we have the support mechanism in the background that's really key to making this work. Because I think, anyone and everyone who's on this call will know it's tough to start a business, it's tough to run a business, it's tough to make it profitable. All those things are tough. But actually, when you're doing something innovative, which is different and new, a lot of people give you the face when you tell them what it is, because like that sounds slightly mad. And so you need that backup support. You need the people who can be there when you're having a tough time, or can make those introductions to the right people that can help move the business forward. And I think that's what Belfast and Northern Ireland is really good at. We're a nation of people who are really gritty, but we're also a nation of people who want to help and support each other. In 6 years of asking random people who I don't know to help our entrepreneurs, no one's ever said no in those 6 years. People have always said yes. And I think that's the thing that will underpin all of this. The stuff that Jane's doing and the council and everyone else is fantastic. That's underpinned by the universities, ourselves, TechStart, all those organizations that play that part in each of these people's journeys. And I think that's the exciting thing for us, is we've matured into an ecosystem which is complementary to each other instead of competing with each other. And Stephen and it moves on to Ignite because it's the right thing for his business now to move on from our accelerator program. And I think that the last point that kind of touch on before I hand back to you to throw out some questions, Simon, is I think Jane touched on that kind of 20 years ago when we looked at Belfast being a city of in that cyberspace and how that could potentially be a massive thing for us. I think we're at that catalyst point for climate right now. One of the really interesting things I've seen in the past 9 months within that space of innovation is we have 12 accelerator programs across the UK. We take 1,000 entrepreneurs in every 6 months on those programs. So I can benchmark ourselves in Belfast against London, Edinburgh, Cardiff, Newcastle, Manchester, all those other cities across the UK. We were the fastest city in the UK to fill our first climate accelerator, which we launched last October. By far. And for me, when we're competing against cities like London, that fills me with hope. And we found some really, really exciting and interesting businesses here that are trying to do stuff that's innovative within that climate space. And I think, if we move forward 20 years time, when we're having these same conversations about where Belfast is then, I think we'll probably look back on this year and next year and the years around now as the time as a city we became really focused on climate and how we could play our part in a worldwide issue, but also with that massive issue, there's great potential there for startups and innovators to actually come through and make a difference there.
Thanks, John. One of the takeaway things there, I think you said, was about how we complement and not compete. And obviously, the business wouldn't be business if there wasn't a degree of competition. But I do think it is something that makes the city stand out and this part of the world stand out, where there is an abundance of people wanting to help other folk, and I think that's one of the big advantages of we have as a city and why we've been doing so well. I'm going to go maybe back to Jane I mean, Jane, one of the things that I picked up, and you started with it, and John has touched on it, is that, you know, in many ways, talking about Belfast becoming an innovation city, you know, is looking to the future. It almost it's as if we haven't been innovative, but yet there is that heritage and maybe what we were doing 100 years ago or 50 years ago was very, very different. So what we're doing now and what we might do in the future, and John mentioned climate, and you mentioned green technology as well, but you know, to what extent is this? Is it? I mean, to what extent is it not something that's kind of fresh and new, but actually just building and adapting and changing something that has actually always been there, and that this is a city that has in its DNA capacity to engineer solutions to people's problems?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess probably picking up on John's points, I guess there's two things that in an ecosystem for innovation, it isn't. The research is a necessary part of it, but it's only part of that ecosystem, and you can't whistle a symphony. You need an orchestra to do it. So it's all those parts coming together, and actually Belfast plays those instruments really well. But I think one of the really tremendous opportunities for Northern Ireland and Belfast to lead is in that green technology, that clean growth, because we are a city of engineers. I am an engineer. And we have led the world in the past decade and decades and hundreds of years and centuries in that space. We have Harland and Wolff, the cranes I can see from outside this window. We have Bombardier, now Spirit. We have and we need to look outside Belfast as well from a Northern Ireland perspective, because we need that scale to play. Screening and crushing in Mid-Ulster, really significant. 70% of all the equipment coming globally from that area. So we have those core technologies. We have proven that we can do those and be significant globally. They all have challenges in terms of addressing net zero carbon and our challenges globally and both locally. And we have then our own challenges to adapt. So I think because we have that in our DNA built over centuries, we have a real opportunity to embrace those new technologies. The program I talked about earlier that we have a 50 million project regarding is about supporting our transportation sectors, land transport, aerospace and maritime, building the skills they need in terms of equipping themselves for net zero carbon. So not just following, but leading. And all areas are looking to lead. So I think it's really, it's really key for us to double down and focus on those areas where we can lead again within those areas, but it's based on that very long heritage. So that clean growth, I think, is a really strong sector for us. But also you look towards the areas of health and life sciences, so we have some really strong Indigenous companies. We invented the first portable defibrillator that went in heart sign. Now we've got a US company in our city because of that, through that acquisition, that Stryker. And that's a really significant kind of both university research, but building that ecosystem around it. Really strong investments going into the city deals in terms of those life and health sciences. So combining that and the multiplier effect to say, okay, if we're going to focus on these areas, what bits do we need to put around to deliver that level of focus? And I think you talked about competition. And actually, I've seen in Belfast the ability to cooperate much more than compete, because you need that ecosystem around you to actually be successful. You need to create a pool of skills who can be mobile within that sector, and that will allow you to be more competitive collectively. So I think there's really, from where we are now, we've done all the hard yards to an extent. We have that resiliency, that tenacity, that engineering background, and actually we have a really significant platform for which, if we have that focus, and I think the Department for Economy's 10x vision, focusing in those areas where we can compete. We can't compete everywhere, so we need to be really laser focused on the areas where both we need to compete, and net zero carbon is an example, but where we have a competitive advantage, and instruments like levelling up and those things can double down on that, and free ports can also allow us to magnify that as well, Simon.
Thanks, Jane, and I think it's a very good point, and almost to sort of use a phrase that many don't like to use, about kind of choosing winners almost within our economy. And in the past, I think we've been very reticent to, say that sectors are a priority, sectors have greater growth opportunities than others, and we try to be kind of, saying everything's a priority, and if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. But to some extent, you see that as very much the way to go. Look at the areas in which we can be world class, where we need to be world class. I think is a very good turn of phrase as well around this. But that in itself then helps that wider ecosystem of the city's economy as well. It's not abandoning other sectors by any means. It's about concentrating on your strengths, but then the overall growth helping everyone.
Absolutely, it's focused on the areas which can give us the higher productivity piece. Higher productivity will give more and better jobs, and it will provide better socioeconomic outcomes, and it will fund all the things that we need from an infrastructure, from a social housing, all those key aspects. So it's looking at it with a very system-wide approach. How do we need to fill the system to give us the outcomes that we need? And obviously, if you focus on areas where you can have a higher output and piece, that will give you the better outcome. But actually, the strategy is all about inclusive. So the core technologies that you need are software, ICT, hardware. They are across platform in terms of delivering that. So it's not an either or net sum game. It's just saying, okay, we have identified these areas that we have. Let's put the research excellence in that. Let's support the ecosystem. And most importantly, from a technology perspective, let's support those who are far from technology and innovation and give them pathways, because you no longer need to go to university for 5 years to be able to play your part within that ecosystem to have the more and better jobs. So let's focus on those who are furthest from that and give them pathways into those roles and those jobs as well.
That's a nice lead into a question that we've been asked by Conor Smith, and it's really about inclusive growth and how we can ensure that those harder to reach communities also benefit from growth and innovation. And sometimes that can, you're right, I think you've touched on this already, that might seem like when we're talking about innovation and clean and green technology and fintech, it might seem a little bit remote and distanced to those who maybe don't have the skills or experience or educational background. So how do we ensure that they benefit from this type of growth? And Conor's asked as well, what role perhaps social enterprises can play, a huge sector within the city's economy. How can they also help in terms of turning the city into an innovation city?
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think the piece for me is making sure that inclusive innovation isn't done onto communities, that they're part of a co-design process and piece. So Belfast City Council is leading a programme called the Belfast Maritime Piece, which is working with communities in an area in an innovation district and co-designing the solutions to make sure that we're getting the value of diversity built into those propositions. That's a prototype for how we're going to scale out that inclusive innovation piece, making sure we took the value from diversity within those areas. There's very specific things we've done just in the short term through programmes led with the FE colleges and through Belfast Region City Deal. So we look towards those pathways from people who didn't have a technology background, particularly under 25s, and we offered rapid reskilling into those programmes and also paid placements into our SME communities. That was a very successful cohort. We were oversubscribed both in the entry level for the applications and also in terms of the take up within industry, and those people are now actually in place, many of those through that cohort. And another piece we're also looking at from that diversity angle is, and I mentioned before, is looking towards those who perhaps feel that through a diversity element, those roles aren't for them. So we're leading a diversity component, looking at pathways for women and people with disabilities into those programs and understanding from a specific perspective what the barriers are to adoption. And there was some interesting reports regarding childcare required in terms of supporting those adoptions. So not just having generically someone who is economically inactive has this perspective, but actually trying to unpick what the specific barriers are. Really interesting stats presented by PwC a few months ago in the Women in the Workplace showed that if Northern Ireland increased from 70% participation in the workplace for women to 80%, which is the same in the southeast of England, it would deliver 2.3 billion to our economy. I guess some of those barriers, we have removed them with COVID and home working. Some of those barriers are there. So we want to make sure that when we're moving kind of into a new reality, we're really, building that new piece of addressing those issues. Part of our city deal is also looking at funding and funding, venture type funding for businesses and SMEs And that social enterprise funding is really a key part of that, to see how can we fund not just outside a model which is based for the West Coast of America, but actually to fund companies that aren't just focused on a 10x unicorn return, but are focused on providing community value, but a solid commercial return as well. So we're looking at kind of all aspects in terms of skills and funding opportunities to make sure we don't miss the opportunity. Some brilliant social enterprises out there delivering value to the community, but also delivering commercial returns. But the model sometimes isn't built to fit what they need, and maybe we should be changing the model in some scenarios.
That's some really good initiatives. Or sorry, John, did you want to?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in, Simon, on that inclusivity piece again. If we go back to that, how as a more mature kind of ecosystem here, we're becoming. I'm on a group with British Business Bank and 25 other organisations who came together to say, a recent report basically put us as the worst region in the UK for female entrepreneurship and ethnic minority entrepreneurship. And we came together as a group to say, how do we play our part in that? It's not one organisation's problem to fix, but as an ecosystem, we came together to say, right, let's look at what those challenges are, and how do we bring people together to start fixing it and fixing it as a community, as opposed to it's someone else's problem to deal with. Because I think when it comes to that innovation, we're in the and to your point earlier, I think we do need to be better at the narrative about saying we are brilliant, we are a fantastic city and a country for innovation, but also we need to look at the innovation in 20 years time and 30 years time, and that comes from those people who may not have started a business right now. And so we also need to make sure that every aspect of this is kind of looked after. And if we are the worst region in the UK for women to start a business, well, the positive news in that is we can't get any worse. So we can only get better, which is great. But what Jane's talking about and a lot of the stuff that's going on with the Women's Investor Ready project locally and other organisations about supporting more women to get into business, but supporting more women to get investment is really key to driving that innovative culture here. Because as Jane's talked about, we're leaving a lot of money off the table if we can move that dial from 70 to 80%. We're also leaving a lot of innovation off the table by not making sure that we've got as inclusive a group of entrepreneurs in Northern Ireland as we can do. And that's what those groups of people coming together are saying, how do we make this more inclusive so we can drive as many people into that funnel that in 10, 20 years time, we're talking about those people the same way we're talking about Artemis Technologies today and those types of businesses.
Before I go back to Stephen, John, you mentioned what Jane had said earlier around that kind of our sort of cultural inability sometimes to see ourselves as a place that's doing really well, as home to these great companies, these great businesses, and doing some really, really good stuff. You're in a great job where you see businesses like Stephen's coming into the bank, coming into the accelerator program, and that must inspire you that there is that capacity, that scale out there of people who are doing tremendous things within Belfast, and communicating that sense of we can do big things here, we can do great things here, and there's lots of support there to help people, whether it's at a high level or at that sort of mentoring sort of one-to-one sort of level that we've been talking about. So how do we get that message out much better to people, to inspire them that actually this is a great place to set up a business, great place to grow a business, because we can do great things.
Yeah, I think the one of the biggest challenges is mindset, and I think we're a nation of people who are very humble in what we talk about, and we don't really shout about ourselves enough. And I think that probably comes from a deep-rooted childhood thing for most people. And a lot of we've worked with 650 entrepreneurs in our program since I started it sort of 5.5, 6 years ago. The common theme in there, when you get someone in a room and you're having a private conversation with them where it's just the two of you, is definitely that self-belief. And I think we just need to keep on pushing on that and ensuring that those people who do doubt themselves, and it's easy to doubt yourself when you're doing something innovative because it's something no one's done before, so you kind of do question yourself. But self-belief is definitely something that is challenging, and it's not there's no magic bullet for that. We can't say, go take a course tomorrow for 2 hours and you'll be solved of that. That comes with a lot of work, a lot of people coming together to support and understand why someone lacks that belief. But I think that the more we start to shout and talk about ourselves in a positive way instead of hiding under that, you know, Christine Boyle, who runs Synergy, which is a solar thermal panel that started about 6 years ago, that, you know, in the next 18 months, we're going to be shouting about a lot in Northern Ireland as a world leading climate business. You know, I remember speaking to her 5 years ago about where she comes from, West Belfast, and she said, where's the people for me to look up to as a role model in West Belfast? Now, you know, Christine, you're that person. You need to be that person in 5 years' time for younger people coming through. And I think the narrative needs to change, that we need to stop being so humble. We can't go the other way and be way too arrogant about what we do, but I think we need to balance in the middle somewhere. And I think if we can start to do that, that will make other people start to realize it's okay to shout about how great we are and what we're doing, and why this is an amazing city to live in, to work in, to start your business, to be innovative. And I think that's a real key point for us.
Thanks, John. Stephen, I've got to come back to you in terms of, you know, you've launched Civic Dollars, and it's, you know, it's very focused on health, also focused obviously on the community and helping the community. And events of the last year or so have very much focused this on our health, and whilst what has been in the news has been one particular aspect of that, you know, one of the consequences of lockdown and having to stay at home and not being about as much is a lack of activity, and certainly speaking personally in that regard. So the timing of your launch has, you know, I suppose it is timely in that, you know, that people are starting to think about their health, and you have got those long-term challenges that Jane talked about as well. So you're obviously playing a part within all of that. Maybe you could speak a little bit more about that as well. And can I also ask you to talk about Jane mentioned challenge funds, and you talked about how you had been successful with SBRI, which is a kind of a challenge fund. How was that process helpful in developing the business? Because I'm sure that was quite rigorous and a difficult process, and a bit of a test for you as you were starting up Civic Dollars.
Yeah, I suppose just to go back to the health side of it, the whole idea of Civic Dollars was to reduce that health inequality, where beforehand, if you had your Fitbit trackers and your phones, and maybe even to the likes of the Vitality schemes where you got your cinema tickets and Starbucks vouchers for doing it, but you had to be able to afford that at the start. Whereas we're trying to drive Civic Dollars as a social currency, that all you have to do is go into a park, sit on the bench, and you can still earn them for doing that. And it's that inequality piece, particularly around health, that was very important from us from the start. I suppose there's the barrier wise, you're talking about data poverty is still a huge problem, where people can't afford the data tariff on their phones and rely on Wi-Fi a lot, which is where maybe the advanced wireless piece comes in, that Jane was talking about, to cover the city in Wi-Fi. But the data poverty was one of the big flags and barriers that was brought up to us during our research piece. I suppose that from the SBRI side of things, the applications definitely were tasking, and as an SME and startup, we were up against a lot of big companies as well that could also apply for it, and they were well within their rights to, with their various innovative breakouts. But I suppose the key thing to anybody applying to the SBRIs or the Challenge Fund is to look at what they actually want as their outcomes and try and fit your solution into it. Like Civic Dollars wasn't exactly a perfect fit for the SBRI, but we've seen what was possible and how we could adjust it to hit the trigger points on it, and they've seen the benefit of whenever they were reviewing it of what we could do and the potential, because a very important part of it is not only what we can do at the minute and can we fix this, but what's your potential to scale and go global. And we've had already, along with the Leeds and Dublin projects, we're looking at going further afield into Europe and hopefully Australia as well.
Thank you, Stephen. And that's a nice. I was going to ask you about export. I mean, you mentioned some other cities that you're getting into. I mean, this is something that Belfast, a nice little, maybe something Jane can pick up on as well, around how, you know, where that sort of not too big, not too small a city. It's a good place to test bed ideas like civic dollars, and you're looking to reach out beyond here, and you don't really see Belfast is certainly not the limit of your hopes for civic dollars.
Definitely not. And as you say, it is the perfect place to do it, because there is that built-in community angle where we're using the community groups. They see the benefit of it, and they're being the catalyst to onboard our users. They're telling their members, get out into the parks and earn the civic dollars. So we're having a real community approach, because I suppose here is like a lot of places where everybody's so anti-authoritarian that they don't like being told what to do by particularly the government. So when it comes at that peer level, from the community, where they're saying to their peers and their members, get out and use it, you know it's coming from a trusted source, and that's what we're trying to push. So yeah, we can lift that project, and we can just forklift it onto any other smart city project or smart city template, and take it as far as we can.
Thanks, Stephen. Back to you, Jane, for one last question before we wrap up. Nice reminder, our questions from Lizzie Buick at the Southeastern Regional College, that we talk a lot about universities. I think there's a tendency to talk about it, but our further higher education colleges also have enterprise innovation programs, which are helping a lot of companies in Belfast to grow. Roisin Floyd has asked a good question, a discussion about getting women into the workforce, and I think that data that you were highlighting was phenomenal in terms of the potentiality of all of that. But she's asking whether you've seen any developments in the fintech sector in Belfast, any opportunity, with more women getting involved, and if there are opportunities to encourage and educate women more about that sector.
Yes, absolutely. It's very topical, because tomorrow I'm kicking off that session to look at pathways for women into reskilling in terms of our core sectors that I just referenced earlier, which includes financial services, and that's actually being led by the FE colleges. So we're having Belfast Metro leading that cohort. We're looking at alternative pathways. There was a prototype that was trialled previously, and we're working with a strong group within the business sectors to support that. So we have 3 cohorts we're looking at. First of all, how can we get women and we're looking at initial cohorts, and there's a big diversity spectrum, but initially looking at pathways for those who don't have any technology background through reskilling assured skills programs within the FEs. We're also looking at entrepreneurship and how we can encourage, how we can look at the funding system for women and people with disabilities in terms of an entrepreneurship lens. And then we're also looking, and Allstate is leading this initiative, about the leadership perspective of women, because I guess all of this is about pathways, it's about ecosystems, it's about getting the orchestra in place, but it's about the pathways. So to John Ferris's point about Christine, you need that aspiration role at the top actually to follow through and create that pathway. So how can we make sure that we have the right representation at a leadership level to be the sponsors and coaches? So very much a focus, and actually it's very much a focus of Programme for Government as well, looking at those diversity. And just a last point on that, it isn't, it is the right thing to do, it is the morally right thing to do, but it is the economically correct thing to do. All the stats show it, 25% by the Boston Group show a better outcome and performance from a more diverse skill set. And also from a diversity perspective in Northern Ireland, the biggest issue we have is access to skills. So we have an underutilised resource. So we need to bring that into the pathway from an economic perspective.
Thank you, Jane. I can't believe that the hour has gone. That was all fascinating stuff, and I hope you all agree. Not just informative in terms of Jane's presentation and inspiring in terms of what Stephen and his team are doing, but a really good discussion on a wide range of issues that are very relevant, very pertinent to Belfast's economic future. So it just leaves it to me then to thank all of our speakers, to thank John and Stephen for their contribution, and Jane as well. I also want to be wrong to let Jane come on and not congratulate her on her recent appointment as the new head of the civil service. Jane, Belfast's loss is Stormont's gain. We wish you all the very best in that job. I get a sense, speaking from some degree of experience, that you'll need all of those innovation skills that you have to get the orchestra performing the same tune at Stormont. So very best of luck, and no better person to do that job. So we all wish you very well in that very, very important task for all of us in this part of the world. Can I thank Ulster Bank again for its sponsorship and support of our Belfast Talks business series. It's greatly appreciated, and we thank you for all the help in putting today's event together. I just want to remind everyone, thank also just Neil and Catherine and the team at ND Events for helping everything run very, very smoothly. And I just want to highlight to everybody that Belfast Chambers Annual General Meeting is at 10 o'clock next Thursday morning. All members are of course very welcome. So please go to our website, go to belfastchamber.com, and you can register there for the AGM. You can also register for our final Re-Energising Belfast event, which is looking at, we're bringing Leeds, as mentioned earlier. We have Tom Reardon, who's the Chief Executive of Leeds City Council, and Scottsboro, who is the Chief Executive at Port City Authority in Copenhagen, talking about how their cities have been transformed in recent times. So you can go to our website and register for that. And then finally, just want to thank everybody for your attendance this morning. We hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon.
Thanks.